footprint and principle 6 disclosure in BRSR. Friends, as you are aware, we are trying to bring out every Friday new topics since 2020. And this time we have this very interesting and technical topic. Out of the BRSR, there are so many things because it's a ESG concept. And out of this ESG concept, we are covering the E part. Because ESG means environment, social and governance. So social and governance, we have done program. We have done the program on environmental also, but exclusively we are doing this program on principle 6, which is related to environment. As you are aware, the business responsibility and sustainability reporting framework introduced by SEBI is designed to enhance the transparency and accountability of the listed company. And that's why in Indian company, they are following the ESG as business because business is increasingly growing and it has to align with the environmental and sustainability. And they should follow the responsible business, responsible practice, and they should understand the implication of the environmental hazard and how the sustainability will play a long-term goal. As you are aware, the entire world is talking about the environmental protection, environmental pollution related thing because the green gases and so many things are taking place. Temperature is going up, glacier is going down, and various things are impacting this heat which we are creating. Now, sometimes we think that this is not my role, but it's not correct. It's the role of those people, those who create this. And it is their responsibility to do this. That's why this principle of 6, which is especially focusing on environmental impact, has come out. Now, this environmental impact highlights company's operational conduct because all operation, whatever you are doing, whether you are manufacturing, service and trading, whatever operation you are doing, this something environmental is affecting. Somewhere you are creating something, you are using natural resources, you are digging something, you are using, you are throwing. So this principle holds critical significance because environmental matter continue to be key concern for regulator, investor and customer in today's time. And friends, something is not applicable to others, but this particular concept is applicable to us. Us mean everyone, whether it's a poor, whether it's a rich, whether it's an industry which is creating pollution or not. So in this webinar today, we want to delve upon this key element of principle 6 of BRSR, best practices for reporting, understand technical terminology and their implication on business. The aim is to equip business and company with the necessary knowledge to ensure accurate and quality filing of BRSR while acknowledging the minimizing their environmental impact. Additionally, we will discuss financial benefit of including strategy for effective environmental management practice. Sometimes people think that why I should invest because whenever you are following this practice, initially you have to spend more, a return will come later on. So today we will discuss in our webinar stepwise understanding principle 6, element including carbon footprint, emission, energy efficiency, water waste, biodiversity, impact and related technicalities. Then legal implication of these non-compliance if you're not following this, sustainable resource management and circular economy, value adding and statutory initiative, financial benefit for implementing this. This is very important and I will tell you some very interesting analysis also. For doing this, we have in-house expert team. First, I welcome Ankit Singhi, who is head corporate affairs and compliance, corporate professional, who heads this ESG division. Also, Sukriti Kashyap, she is a senior associate, ESG reporting and sustainability solution, corporate professional. She is an advocate, environmental advocate, and she has the thorough knowledge on this concept as well as the Indian ethos also. She has very interesting, and then she is always taking classes in our office and telling what is the impact of this environmental and sustainability. I welcome Ankit and Sukriti both. Then we have Ms. Riya Singh. She's Associate ESG Reporting and Sustainability Solution, Corporate Professionals, and she's MSc topper in Environmental and Technology. So she will tell us about the technical part. So friends, today when we are discussing all these points, it's no doubt it's a SEBI point, but it is too technical. And for technicality, we should understand the implication, and the person who has a knowledge of environmental law, knowledge of this particular concept, they can be well placed to tell us. Before I'll give some certain data, I just want to inform all of you the next webinar on 31st January, that is Friday, 4 p.m. We have a program on data protection, a game changer, because now data protection law is in place and the things are there. So we should understand this. Now, before I should tell Ankit and other team member, I have created certain points which I want to discuss all of you and give a background of the subject, because this subject which they are taking is a technical. So I just want to uh, tell you as a layman, as a person who wants to understand this, and when they will tell you, then you will correlate with this. So sixth principle, everybody has understood that energy efficiency, water emission, water management, waste management, prescribing biodiversity, disaster management, and environmental responsibility. That is everything will come. Now, question is why the law is required? Why not company should do by its own? Because why the need of government to bring out law and tell companies to follow this? Why they are not doing self? This is one question which is coming again and again. Something you can make on the basis of, because there is a few people, few organization, they are following something and it's impacting few people. So you are making law. But here, this is impacting everyone. Even if you are creating pollution, or if you are creating something, a noise pollution, or any type of air pollution, it is impacting you also. But we are not bothered about this. So law is there. So I got this point that why law is needed for this. So then I was doing research, then I realized that for this type of thing, law is required because compliance and uniformity is required, because sometimes voluntary action often inconsistent. You are doing something and some other person is doing, so uniform standards can come place. Then corporate prioritize often overlook sustainability. This is one important point when I will see, because corporate works on the profitability. So they see short-term profit versus long-term benefit. So they always do this. And market, sometimes the market is not understanding this part and they don't do this. Then encouraging accountability. Sometimes what is happening, you are telling that I want to do this, but if there is a law, then accountability is there because you have to submit some information on a regular basis and consistently. Then driving cultural and behavioral change. Now, if there's a law, then if you don't want to do, then even then you have to do. And then timeline is also there. Sometimes what is happening, if we are doing something by our own, then we missed out and we it's go to our backbenchers and we don't follow this. Then there's a alignment of national and global goals, because government of India is also part of the international bodies. So they have a Paris Agreement, United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, SDGs. So they have to follow something, because everybody has to do something, because otherwise we will not be able to take breathe also. Then protecting future generation, that is another part. If you follow law and if you are imposing, then we are not doing work for today but tomorrow. So business is always for the today's profit, not for tomorrow's something. So that's why the law is required. Market pressure alone is not sufficient. Sometimes we say because tell them do yourself, it is not possible to do this because that's insufficient. Addressing resistance on voluntary measures. Sometimes what is happening, if you do voluntary, people will not follow, and that there's no level playing field will come. And history shows law drive changes. So we have seen in the society minimum wages, worker safety, anti-pollution measures. When they implemented, then people have followed this. So this is one part which is very important, that why law is required. Now another question comes. We know that three industries are there in the world: manufacturing, service, and trade. So manufacturing is creating 65 to 75% pollution, and they pollution is in the manufacturing is air pollution, water, soil degradation, energy, resource depletion, and this manufacturing industry is chemical, automobiles, textile, cement. Still, they are creating this type of pollution. But do you think that trading and service is not also creating? Answer is yes. Trading industry is creating 15 to 20% pollution, and they include carbon emission, waste generation, energy consumption, land degradation. Because energy consumption means they have a 10,000 people in the company, the AC, light, various things. They are eating, they are creating various things, and they are coming to the company. All things are there. So they are creating 15 to 20%, like e-commerce, retail industry, and global trading. These are the coming in trading. Then come to the service industry, which is lowest, but even then it is creating 5 to 15%. And that is energy consumption, e-waste, carbon footprint, water waste, and waste generation. And IT company, hospital, healthcare, financial services are part of this. Now, if I see compare manufacturing, I have told you, service industry, their office, data center, transportation, tourism, hospitality, all these companies are part of this. In trading, logistic, warehouse, packaging, retail, they are part of this. So these are the company. But when I just see that I was just doing analysis that which are the top 10 countries which are generating this greenhouse and gas emission. China is on top, United States number 2, India third, Russia, Japan, Germany, Iran, South Korea, Canada, and Saudi Arabia. These are the countries which are doing this. If I just say China's, which is the highest number, their manufacturing companies are there, their trading companies are there, and their service industries are there, they are providing. If we see India, manufacturing, Coal India, Reliance, Tata Steel, Vedanta, Adani, they are manufacturing and they are producing maximum number C2 emission. ट्रेडिंग में इंडियन ऑयल, भारत पेट्रोलियम, हिंदुस्तान पेट्रोलियम, एग्रीकल्चर प्रोडक्ट मार्केट, टाटा मोटर्स, these are the company which are doing trading also and manufacturing. Then service में State Bank and Infosys, they are the maximum number of employee working there. They are producing the carbon. Now in service industry, if I see what are the things, energy consumption, number one, because electricity and fuel, transportation, because your employees are going and coming, that is there. Resource, because they generate considerable waste, including electronic waste, e-waste, paper, plastic, and food waste. That is there because their number is very high. Then carbon footprint, energy for lighting, air condition, heating, water uses, groundwater generation. These are the things which are creating in service industry. Then indirect environment impact will take place, like bank and financial institution. These people are doing because their people are coming and going, and they are in various number. Now, if you say example, Amazon, they are creating 71.54 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent in 2022. Google is, the consumer is 12.5 because they are their centers, their IT center, data center, so electricity they require. Hospitality, Merit International, because major contributor to food waste and single use of plastic pollution they create. Uber, high emission from transportation because they are trip this place to this place that is going on. IT companies, their environmental impact, energy they are using, data center is using highest number of energy, e-waste they create, carbon emission, employee commuting from remote places, office operation and real estate, that is also an indirect environmental impact that is also taking place. So this is these IT companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, Infosys, they create because their number is very high. Now, question is, can we get some example where the companies are doing something great and they have identified? So, Tata Group, the Tata Steel, Tata Power, they have done this and they have reduced CO2 emission by 18%. The last decade by transport transition by low carbon process. Tata Power generated 32% is total power by renewable energy. Same Infosys has done. They have per capita electricity consumption by 55% over the decade. They have reduced and they are using solar. Mahindra Group, they are using added 500 megawatt of clean energy for power grid. Unilever in international market, they are also doing and they are reducing. Same thing, ICA is doing, Microsoft is doing, and various other countries are doing, companies are doing. So they are improving air quality, they are resource conservation they are doing, restoration of biodiversity they are doing, and then global aspiration they are creating. Now, can we see that this law is there, that every law we have to see impact analysis of the implementation, especially in India and abroad. So impact of these BRSR reporting and various other countries is a different name. So enhanced transparency and accountability that has started. People are following, the people are understanding. There is a talk of the town related to ESG. Alignment with global standard, that is another part which is happening. The Paris Agreement is saying that you have to reduce CO2 by 2047 or 2030. They have given different parameters. So they have to do, so that you have to follow this. So the country is committed, then company has to committed towards the country. Challenges of implementation is there. Now people are following and they are doing this. In global, we have seen ESG increase, disclosure has increased, improved corporate performance is there, and global standardization is continuously improving. Now, ultimately, the question comes, what is the benefit to do this? Is there any benefit to follow this? Answer is yes. Number one, it is not a financial benefit, but it is a future benefit also. So first is access of new resource of funding. If you are ESG compliant company, green bond, ESG focused investment fund and sustainability financial program, they are exclusive funds. They invest only if you are ESG compliant and you are environmental compliant. Second is reduction of cost of capital. Another advantage, because lower interest rate is there, and then government is also giving various subsidy to these people and better credit rating. So whenever you are going for credit rating and you are doing this this type of thing, then they get better rating because ESG compliant companies always ahead the normal company. Revenue growth by green product and service. Sometimes what is happening, you are starting some packaging, some different thing, you charge some premium also, and then you will get new market also, new market opportunity. So that's why, and then carbon credit offsetting is also there in various places. That market, earlier it has come, now again it will come. Tax benefit and incentive, like we have seen the EV vehicle, India is giving subsidy, India is giving various reduction, various charges they are doing, and various tax rebate is also getting. So government subsidy tax reduction is also there. So that is another advantage. Like biogas plant, solar installation, all these are exempted from certain tax. So that is overall tax burden can reduce. Then enhance reputation and stakeholder trust. That is another part. If you are ESG compliant company, you will get higher valuation in your IPO, in your capitalization, everything. If a clean energy company is coming, then customer loyalty is also connected. Today you are not realizing, but tomorrow then people will see whether you are ESG compliant company or not. Each product which is selling, it will come like this, that yes, my company is ESG compliant, and they will follow. Operational risk management is also reduced, like adopting sustainable practice help reduce operational cost. Supply chain stability will also come, and avoidance of fines and litigation, that is also another advantage. Climate resilient infrastructure you are creating, so some risk is there that will not come. some long-term competitive advantage you are having because you are a first mover, so you will get that advantage and you are improving. And then improve operational efficiency is always there. And we have seen in India, ITC has done this, Mahindra has done, Tata Steel has done, Tesla is number one EV because they were the first mover and they are doing renewable energy. Hindustan Lever is doing. So at last, for this benefit, you see you will get new funding sources, reduced borrowing cost, higher investor confidence, better market capitalization, tax benefit and governance, and operational risk mitigation through this. So these are the advantages of following this environmental point. So I have given the overview of this, and sometimes people confuse that the service industry, trading industry, what they are doing, they are also creating lots of pollution and environmental hazards. And these companies should also follow something to compensate this. So this is my overview. Now I will request Ankit to tell us about the law part and other things.
I think you have already taken most of my lines. Good evening, everybody. So, we are talking today on P6, and if you see, once when the new format of BRSR, which came to replace BRR, fundamentally it was the same nine principles that were the earlier, but the fundamental change that was there was under P6, and it was one of the most quantitative disclosure that were introduced as part of the new BRSR, and it is also one of the most fundamental disclosure that is important in terms of the ESG framework. As sir mentioned, ESG is E stands for environment, and most of the people or everybody are more concerned about when we talk about ESG on the environment front, and therefore their P6 is of significant importance. And as sir mentioned, that why there is a need of even disclosure under P6. While you see most of the data that is being disclosed in P6, whether under air, whether under water, waste, these are in some way disclosed to various regulatory authorities under Water Act, Environment Act, or under e-waste management rules, or under EPR, or other various schemes and rules that are there. What was fundamentally missing, that investors were not aware what the companies are doing in these front. Like for example, on waste, what are the things that company are doing on management of their waste, what kind of waste they are generating. So there was a lot of challenges in terms of the availability of information that is there on account of all these key factors which contributes to environment and various pollutions arising out of it. And in that sense, the disclosure under P6 are of very significant importance, as I mentioned earlier. If you see the key contours of P6 disclosure, whether it's water, whether it's air in terms of scope 1, 2, 3, whether it's energy, whether it's waste, all of these are seeking some detailed information from you in terms of, like, for example, water, it asks you about usage and discharge. Many companies even find it difficult to tell you discharge because they are not calculating the discharge. There is no way how to measure the discharge. Like manufacturing companies, they do have setup where at the outlet there are equipment which are installed which measure water. But like for example, if you most of these services oriented offices which are using leased offices, there is hardly any data available in terms of for them to ascertain how water is discharged. So the general thing is how the water you use is equivalent to water you discharge. These are the some principles that we rely on determining how to calculate water. Even like water usage is also what is surface water, what is underground water, and water you are using third party. Many of companies use that mineral water bottle jo they use from their water vendor. That is all usage of water. Similarly, in terms of energy, the fuel, what type of fuel you are consuming, what type of data you are maintaining. For example, you have a genset that you install on premises. So that genset, what kind of fuel that genset is using, that will also be important in terms of energy related details, and also in terms of calculating your scope 1, scope 2, and other scope related disclosures. So even for waste, many companies, like we have seen reports of many companies in terms of VRSR, we are saying no waste. How it is possible? Everybody would be generating some kind of either e-waste or waste like plastic, paper. A lot of waste would be generated in any organization whatsoever, how big and how small. But there are companies which are disclosing that there is no waste which is generated. So there are a lot of issues concerning these disclosure in terms of collation of data, and in what units you should measure and you should deploy, because we have seen for 1 year companies are disclosing in another unit, for the next year they are using it different units. Even in companies in same field, different set of companies would be using it different. For example, Tata Steel use a different a unit to show the calculation, then JSW they use a different unit to show the calculation. So all these things are very important for an investor. If I have to compare two companies, how can I read the data if data is not comparable, if it is not in the same unit, or if not the same mechanism has been deployed to calculate that data? Yeah, to aid that, while SEBI recently on 20th December issued a standards recommended by Industry Standard Forum on most of the BRSR code related disclosures, how to calculate, what kind of methodologies you need to deploy. But still, there are a lot of challenges in which companies need to consider. Fundamental challenges with respect to data collation, what kind of data needs to be collated, handed over to the concern, what kind of data you need to actually maintain, which will further be used to calculate all these data at the end of the year. That is one of the fundamental thing that we discuss with very many clients, that they are not maintaining even that data, and therefore going forward we advise them how you should maintain that data. This is what we require if we have to present a rightful picture of your disclosures in terms of P6. Like for waste, if you generate waste, then you also need to know whether it's being recycled, how it is being used, whether it is being used to as at landfills. So there are a lot of data that is need to be disclosed, and there are a lot of confusions around various terms that have been enclosed in these disclosures, and how to measure them and what kind of principles you need to do. For example, in respect of scope calculations, there is a GHG emission protocol which gives you a lot of things, guidance as to how the calculation needs to be done. Even the standards talk about it. The standards also talk about a lot of things where you are not maintaining unit wise data, then you can also rely data in terms of spend. So if you don't have the right data, output data, or a lot of the data can be disclosed considering the amount that you're spending. That is also something which the standards lays down in order to help. So there are a lot of issues concerning around it, and that is why we thought that this principle needs a disclosure and also detailed discussion in order to outline the things one should keep in mind while preparing data, collating data, and then calculating it, and then presenting it in a manner like, for example, there are two essential and leadership indicators. So how even we can go further and do leadership indicators, what kind of data we can give in the leadership indicators. So these there are a lot of things that needs to be done in case of EIA and other things. So today, Sukriti and Ria will take you along in terms of what all things we need to consider while calculating these disclosures. They will also share in terms of detail the legal statutory requirements of under environmental law, of standards with respect to specific industries, what kind of standards have been outlined, which you can consider while out and giving a disclosure. For example, one of the disclosure in the leadership indicator talks about treatment of water. So the Water Act outlines in case of industries, this is how, if you are treating a water, these are the parameters that the treated water should met. So they will also be discussing on some of these standards, that these are the things which you need to consider if you are giving that in leadership disclosure. So I hope you will have a wonderful session going forward, and I'll now request Security and Ria to take this and try to give them as practical approach as we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Um, and thank you so much, Pawan, sir, for outlining the most difficult part that we face every time when clients ask us, इससे मुझे क्या फायदा है? And I think Pawan sir has so easily explained um, what are the tangible benefits attached to it. And in by the end of this presentation, we will give you a quite hitting a case study by Infosys wherein they just made some minute shifts for a couple of years in their scope 2 emission analysis, and the benefits that they saw in their internal operational cost cutting. Yes. Sir, you have a question already?
No.
Okay. Okay, so before delving further into any other discussions, I would like to let you know that Principle 6 is this is how it exactly looks like. So Ria is presenting today, and she will also be taking you through the technical aspects of it because that's what her expertise is. Principle 6 is not just about the legal, statutory, and uh, overall environmental related concerns. This is more holistic. Environmental laws in India have been existing uh, even the moment we became a free India. In 1972, we had the Wildlife Protection Act, which is the world's most progressive wildlife protection laws. Even the United States of America and Europe does not have the kind of wildlife protection that we have given to our indigenous wild animals and species, including flora and fauna. Then we have Environmental Protection Act of 1986 that has been coming out with different rules as per the requirements. In 1990, Mr. M.C. Mehta filed certain progressive public interest litigations in the Supreme Court that made quite a hue and cry in the society when oleum gas case came. And then, of course, we all know about the Bhopal gas tragedy, but that has more to do with, that was an environmental disaster, but that is also to do with the kind of governance. It raised a lot of questions about how the government was playing the role of uh, keeping a check on companies, especially on the multinationals, on the name of globalization, because in the 1991, we opened the gates because we were going through extreme poverty, and through the liberalization and globalization policy introduced by Honorable Mr. Manmohan Singh, we had opened the gates and made the ease of business uh, meander through such low standards of working that there has been a class and section of the society that has suffered a lot in the hands of environmental disasters. But societal changes do not change overnight. Disasters don't happen overnight, so do the changes. So now today, in today's time, in this progressive time where the tectonic shift has happened and everybody does not want a linear view, we we have moved towards an economy where the stakeholders are not just looking into your annual board report. They are also looking into how you are managing the impact that can happen on your operations and what are your operational impact on the society and public at large. That includes the environment. This is exactly how this looks like. This is what Principle 6 BRSR disclosure is. It includes total energy consumption and intensity, PAT scheme, which means perform, achieve, and trade. We will be discussing this in detail as we move ahead. Water consumption, zero liquid discharge policy that was introduced by Central Pollution Control Board in its intensive 119-page report in 2019. Air emissions, greenhouse gases, project related to reducing greenhouse gases will be taken up by RIA. How you need to manage your waste management practices. What is environmental impact assessment? Environmental impact assessment came in India in 2006. Amendments were proposed in 2020 when the COVID times hit, but that has still not turned into a notification as yet. Compliances and regulations in India. These are the broad areas of this entire principle. Ria, maybe move to the next slide. Thank you. These are the leadership indicators. So there's a difference between essential indicators and leadership indicators. When BRSR was introduced, it was introduced as a softer mean means for the companies that these are certain things that we cannot give you an exemption on. You have to make disclosure on the aspects, the 12 aspects that I showed you before. These are the leadership indicators, which means that you may choose to respond to these questions, or you may stay silent. However, I can assure you that within no time, these will also become essential indicators, as we are seeing we are seeing there is a lot of window dressing happening in the BRSR reports. And we are also seeing that there's a lot of confusion in the industries with respect to the reporting and data collection, which we will also discuss in the coming slides. So, okay, so these are the challenges. Overall, you can see these challenges in collecting data, lack of clarity, issue in reporting scope 3 emission, gap in biodiversity, and so on and so forth. But I can assure you that the biggest challenge is to accept that I have to do all these things, that environment is getting impacted by my operations, and environment that greenhouse gases, water discharge, environmental responsibility is something that I need to take care of. It is very difficult to make the existing board to understand that these are real life. These are your real company performance altering aspects, and probably you're not able to see it from that lens right now because you're not able to perceive these changes. Sometimes some things are so big and so minute that they are missed from the naked eye. So here I'd like to say something extremely beautiful that I heard yesterday. We are all going through this time of Mahakumbh. And what does Kumbh means? Kumbh means womb. So we all are living inside a one big womb known as Mother Earth. And we are not able to see it because we are living inside it. A child is never able to realize that, okay, it's protected inside the mother's womb. It's only when it will start hitting us directly, and we will be able to perceive from our five senses, then we will be able to realize that, okay, we should have taken certain responsibilities, but it will be too late by then. But still, we are at a very good position. It's never too late. And philosophy aside, let's come to the practical aspects. It's extremely important for the existing board of each and every company to realize that this is a tangible and only metrics that can show you immediate results, provided you understand nitty-gritties of the science here and there. We understand that you understand the commerce part very well, but if you connect well with the scientific aspects, you will be able to you will be able to see huge benefits in terms of cutting your operational costs just by being a little process efficient and understand science-based and nature-based targets. So I don't see them as challenges. These are probably the steps that you can see. You can make shift in your arrangement. Collect the data as your consultant asks you to. You'll have to probably undergo a little training. Every department will have to undergo a little bit of behavior change. थोड़ा भक्ति भाव होना चाहिए. Surrender to your consultant. Understand that what the consultant tells you in terms of collecting the data, you should be able to do it. The consultants are happy to help you through all the processes around it. The reporting metrics, they need to be very clear, and ask questions. Please ask questions as much as you can. We get questions like joules में करना है, मेगा जूल्स में करना है, किलो जूल्स में करना है, वॉट्स में करना है. आप किसी भी एक यूनिट को पकड़ो और उसमें सारे के सारे ट्रांसलेशंस करते चले जाओ. Translations are available on Google. They are available with the consultants, but please ask questions. Scope 3 is a messy analysis, and let me tell you that there is a lot of double accounting that happens in Scope 3 emissions, because my Scope 1 emissions would be your Scope 3 emissions. This is how it is. So this is definitely one of the challenges, but I'm sure with coming time, we will be having a very set standard considering India's demography and geography and scientific implications. Biodiversity Act has always existed. The Indian Biodiversity Board was formed in 2002 after the Ramsar Convention. It's a very normal, simple act that gives the authority to the ground level stakeholders to become a part in any development activity that is taking place. So we need to have the ground level stakeholder trust in place if we want to manage, not destroy, but manage the biodiversity in place and have our data also in place, because those are these people mentioned in the Biodiversity Act, the patwaris, the gram panchayats, they will be helping you the most when it comes to data analytics, and you will be surprised how educated these people are when it comes to biodiversity proper management, and help you with that going net zero or achieve any of your carbon related targets. So there are inconsistent reporting practices. Of course, we understand that this is a new way. It's suddenly become the talk of the town. So there is going to be a lot of discrepancy when it comes to reporting. But again, as I mentioned, please ask questions, and all your consultants would be happy to answer. Difficulties in stakeholder management. See, until now, we have managed our stakeholders in a very unruly and in a very handwritten manner. We have managed them as as and when we felt they can be managed in a way that they should be managed, but there is no structure as such. If you see that, if you will be surprised again, if you manage your stakeholders well, if you identify your stakeholders first of all, and you manage them well, that will give you quite an operational efficiency and help you understand, like I mentioned in the last parameter, that you want to manage biodiversity, you need land clearance, but you don't have the ground level stakeholder support, and you don't even realize that they are stakeholders. They're landowners. They are your primary stakeholders. You probably think them as people who don't know stuff, but it's not like that. So don't underestimate any of your stakeholders. Have a mapping program, manage them well, and your consultants will be there to guide you how to do that and devise a proper framework. Ria, we move to the next slide? Thank you. This is one parameter, energy, that this is exactly how BRSR energy parameter looks like. So this is the parameter. You have to report it for the 2 financial years. One is your current financial year, one is the previous one. Now we get a lot of questions. What is total energy consumption? No. Previous slide, please. I'm explaining this slide in which we get a lot of questions around electricity consumption. So what is the data you require here? You just require your 12 months electricity bills for this disclosure. Rest other things will be done by the calculations that will come further, and Ria will explain you. Then there is fuel consumption. Electricity consumption is different. It is coming through grids. Here, the laws of electricity will apply. This is the passing of the electrons, even though it's a form of energy, but it passes from one source to another form in the form of highly charged particles known as electrons. I think this information would suffice. Next would be fuel consumption. Fuel consumption would be in the form of diesel, in the form of petrol, or in the form of any other fuel. It could be also hydrogen fuel. It could also be, but usually it is in the form of liquid, but we do also have solid and air fuels. They need to come under the definition of the fuel according to the Energy Act. So as soon as they come under this category, that will be your fuel consumption. Again, that can be crafted through the bills. And then there is energy consumption through other sources. If you have any other sources apart from A or B mentioned, you are free to disclose that. Then we have another portion known as renewable sources. Now, the renewable energies would be solar, it would be wind, it would be biomass. If you have your own biogas plant and you do not pay any bills to any third party, but you have your own internal mechanism that creates electricity, that generates energy for you. I have seen a lot of gaushalas that have huge biogas plants, and the entire gaushala is run by the biomanure that is the main product that a cow delivers, and that is cow dung. So if you have any kind of that kind of, there are the Green Park hotel chain is one example. I have seen their plant myself. So GPS Renewables is one company that had set up quite a huge plant. All the biomass and bio waste goes into that plant, and after 3 years, that plant has Green Park Hotel, especially the Bangalore, the Bangalore chain has gone completely renewable. They don't pay any electricity bills. The biogas energy plant does all their work. So that is quite an example. Then after that, we have the total consumption, renewable plus non-renewable. See, I'll tell you one thing. We get a lot of questions around from the companies. Madam, my consumption is this high. Madam, my consumption is this much. Madam, see, government is only asking you to disclose. Nobody is making any judgments. Nobody is saying, itna consume kyun karte ho? No, there is no cap on you about consumption. The only thing that this disclosure is trying to do is to make you aware that this is the energy that I'm consuming. You know what it will do? It will probably put you through some introspective lens. Do I really need to consume this much? Or probably you will take a few steps back and try to manage and try to see if there are any fugitive emissions, if there are any leaks, if everybody in my office leaves their lights open, if anybody leaves the computer open, is it required? Then probably you'll start crafting policies like that. That's exactly what Infosys did, and they saw tremendous results within a few years' time. Then there is energy intensity per rupee of turnover. The rationale for this disclosure is to make sure that you realize that your turnover is the denominator here, and your energy consumption is the numerator here. Here you will be able to realize that this is intensity per rupee. So if you monetize it, if you want to like you can, if you try to in some e-certs in the future, then you need to know per rupee consumption of your energy so that you are able to manage and form policies accordingly. We can come to the next slide now. Okay, so BRSR encourages you to disclose this in joules or in joules multiples. So 1 kilojoule is equals to 1000 joules, and 1 gigajoule is equals to the unit multiplied by 3 into 10 raised to the power 6 kilojoules. So you please choose one unit, either kilojoules or gigajoules, and then report accordingly. It becomes very difficult. I mean, you will face problems while XBRL filing also. That if you do something in joule, then something in kilojoule, something in gigajoule, and nothing is coming out. So this is not how it needs to be done. Start from one unit and end at unit only, and make conversions accordingly. So these are few examples of renewable and non-renewable sources. Solar, wind, hydro, tidal, geothermal. Non-renewable would be coal, oil, natural gas. See, technically, it's this demarcation is made only for your clear understanding. But if you think from scientific perspective, even the non-renewable sources of energy are coming from earth only. These coal, oil, natural gas, all these forms of condensed coal mass that has decayed beneath the sedimentary rocks for millions of years was given to us by the mass extinctions that happened for millions of years on this planet. And let me assure you that only land resources in terms of non-renewable energy have been explored so far. We haven't gone into the seabed resources that is filled with the biomass of the three mass extinctions that happened only beneath the ocean surface. So this earth is filled with a lot of interesting facts, and science is one such subject that if you start understanding and if you start relating with, it will make your life easy and beautiful at the same time. So now let's come to the next slide. So this is how you can uh, calculate the energy intensity. This is the formula. This is the exact formula, no brainer. Energy intensity per rupee of turnover is equals to total energy consumed that I explained to you in the previous slide, divided by the turnover of your company, the financial turnover in rupees, and you will get your energy intensity per rupee. The alternate metrics could be units of your product, revenue, production volume, size, number of full-time employees. These are the things also that you can consider. Next slide, please. Essential indicators have now included PAT scheme. So what is PAT scheme? Perform, achieve, and then trade. Perform what, achieve what, and trade in what? Simply carbon. And why carbon? Just understanding the basic nature of carbon. Why not in any other element? Carbon is the only element in the entire universe, in the entire Mendelian periodic table, that has the tendency to form the strongest So that's why carbon's best placement is beneath the Earth's surface, not on the Earth's surface. The moment carbon goes beneath the Earth's surface, it becomes a hero. The moment carbon comes on the above the Earth's surface, it starts acting in a deteriorating manner for the mammals, the flora, and the fauna, because it comes in its unnatural state. But at the same time, to live basic human life, that I think that is why we call it the carbon footprint. It is not silver footprint, metal footprint, uh, helium footprint, oxygen footprint. It is carbon footprint, because the moment we do certain kind of activities, carbon gets extracted from its natural state to its unnatural state. And in order to make it go back to its natural state, it needs to be managed properly. Under no circumstances should we villainize any kind of industries who are making profits, because that's something that has been that has absolutely no solution for. We have taken birth as human beings to live as human beings. We have it in the proper fashion. It will not be good for the biological diversity nature also. How? We will discuss that probably in the next webinar, or if we have time, then we will do that. But PAT scheme means that you need to perform certain activities that reduces your carbon footprint. If you are able to achieve that target that is given to you by the government, then you can trade in that carbon that you could have emitted, but you did not because you were conscious of your actions. This is the simplest definition. I will not complicate it for you. This is the simplest you can get. It only means that if you want the lollipop, then you need to take 10 rounds of that ground. But also, it gives you the leverage of coming under the category of designated consumers. How? It's because the government chooses you, bases your conduct and the scope 1 emissions that you release into the environment. What are scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions? That will be technically very well explained to you by Ria in the coming slides. So right now, by Bureau of Energy Efficiency, that is taking care of the PAT scheme, these are the designated consumers: thermal power plants, steel plants, cement plants, textile industries, aluminium extracting plants, paper and pulp industries, petrochemicals, sugar mills, fertilizer plants. Reason being, they directly deal with the land and the natural resources that there are. They don't have scope 2 or scope 3 emissions as much as they have scope 1 emissions. That means direct emissions. That means direct consumption of high level of energy to manage their operations well. Now they're given energy targets. If you use this much of energy, then you are going to do this much of emissions. See, there is a very basic principle in science. Very basic principles. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. This is something that happens with human beings also. It happens everywhere in nature. This is a universal law. And I think we all should adhere to it. If we consume energy, we are definitely going to exude energy in some or the other form. So we consume energy in joules, but we exude energy in the form of emissions or discharges. So energy efficiency incentives are given to these companies that are called the designated consumers. The key steps in the PAT scheme are identification of DCs, that is done by the government, baseline setting and targeting. Every designated consumer is given a different kind of a target depending upon the baseline study that is done by the highly technically qualified scientists of the government. This energy efficiency measures are suggested to them. The verification is done on triannual basis. And if they are able to achieve the target that is given to them after the baseline study is done, then they are given the energy conservation certificates. Then they are allowed to trade in those certificates. So far, unfortunately, no trading in these e-certs. Trading is done, but India is still not able to sell. But India is definitely pioneering in terms of its actions, and it takes time for a change. See, we need to understand that as Indians, as Asians, in fact, we by culture know how to be sustainable. And within no time, we will be able to set extremely good standards, like we've come out with a green steel notification. We are the only country that has mandated top 1,000 listed entities to file a sustainability report. Otherwise, there are legal implications to it. We are the only nation that has a court, National Green Tribunal, dedicated to the public interest litigations filed in favor of the environmental protection. Unlike other countries where there is provision of only class action suit, a person sitting in India can file a petition for people sitting in and suffering in Bengal because of any kind of pollution activity happening there. So we need to believe in our judicial system. We need to believe in science, and we need to believe that whatever consultants tell us is coming from the place of knowledge, experience, and absolute love for nature. Next slide, please. Okay, now let's come to water. This is again a very technical area. These essential indicators are only with respect to consumption. Right now, they are not asking you your monitoring level. But let me tell you, in 1974, when Water Pollution Act came, that already had mandated that certain industries have to follow certain standards when it comes to monitoring of water discharge in terms of tertiary, secondary, and primary levels. So we already had the law, right? It's just the disclosure that is taking place. Ria, the previous slide. Surface water, a lot of questions are around this. Surface water means rivers and lakes. If for your operations or for your discharge, see, there is a difference. You are using water, you are processing that water within the industry, and then you are discharging water. Okay. So right now, this is only with respect to consumption. We'll come to the discharge part later. From where you are drawing water, which stream it belongs to. If it is surface water, then the disclosure needs to be done about a lake or any river. For example, you are a company in Anand Vihar, say, and you derive water from Yamuna ji. Then you have to explain here that this is your consumption from the water source called as Yamuna ji. Or probably you are deriving water, you are consuming water, directly you are consuming water from Kaveri ji or Ganga ji, any water body that is in the state of flow or is in the state of stagnation, that will be called as surface water. If it is a lake, then you have to mention which lake. Then we come to groundwater. For groundwater, we have a very strict compliance called as Central Groundwater, which is monitored by Central Groundwater Administrative Authority. And you have to take license from CGWB if you are consuming more than 50 cubic meter per day. And if you are not disclosing to anybody, but you have done boring and you are simply extracting groundwater, then that will be termed as illegal. And there are repercussions under Water Act with respect to same. Third party water is municipal water. You are not deriving water from any of the natural bodies directly. You are paying the bill to the municipal corporation, and municipal corporation is providing you with water for the consumption, and you are able to manage your operations accordingly. Sea water and desalinated water, the fourth point, is mainly for the companies that are located on any kind of beach areas. If you are a company that is situated probably in Goa and not in Panjim, but on Candolim Beach, and you are deriving water the direct source of water is from the sea, then you need to disclose that I am deriving water, this much of water in cubic meters from the Arabian Sea, and this much water I am going to be discharging in this particular water stream after certain kind of treatment is there. And if you're desalinating that water, then that also you need to disclose. I think fifth point is no-brainer. You need to do a simple addition of all the factors here. It is suggested that you do the disclosure in kiloliters and not liters, otherwise your figure will be just too big. do it in kiloliters. Water intensity per rupee of turnover is exactly the same as we did in energy. Water consumption divided by your turnover will give you your intensity, water intensity. Let's come to the next slide, Ria. Okay. The portion of water withdrawn that is not returned to the original source due to, okay, these are technical terms. Evaporation is the process when water gets each and every layer of H2O gets absorbed by the sunlight. That is evaporation. And that happens throughout the day. This is a natural process that happens all the time. That happens even in your body when you're perspiring. And after some time you stop perspiring, it's probably Surya Narayan Bhagwan has done his job. And total water withdrawn comes from these sources. Desalination techniques include reverse osmosis, distillation, and electrodialysis. Reverse osmosis is RO. This requires a membrane that is there. The salinated water goes inside that membrane and gets sieved through that membrane at low pressure. And then from the other side, at very high pressure, the same water is sent back to the previous chamber that completely separates the water from the salts that there are. But certain salts like potassium and minute levels of sodium are still there, considering if this water is used for drinking, because body requires certain minerals that there are inside the natural water. Distillation is the process where you boil the water at very high temperature and you collect that water, the natural form of water, in the form of water vapor that goes into another chamber and converts again into the liquid form. It converts into vapor form, but when it goes into another atmosphere, it again becomes, it converts itself into the liquid form, and the salt remains as a sediment within that chamber. Electrodialysis means that you make the water undergo some kind of, okay, so this is also done through electrodes. The water, the beaker of the water is made to undergo electric charges. The salt is any kind of salt is the halogens are highly electrically charged particles that go and get stuck into one electrode, and the other electrode is remains free, keeping the water ions safe and intact. And we immediately remove that electrode from the beaker itself, having H2O in its pure form for usage. We can move to the next slide. So this is pretty much the calculation. Water intensity per rupee of turnover is equals to total water consumed divided by total turnover in rupees. This is also prescribed by SEBI, and this is pretty much the scientific equation also. Alternative metrics, again, units of products, revenue, production in volumes, size, and number of full-time employees. Next slide, please. Is a leadership indicator. In the essential indicators, you only have to indicate that this is the consumption. In the leadership indicator, you have to mention about the discharge. Now you have consumed, now you have used the water within the operations. And after all of this process, the time has come for you to discharge that water into another water stream or any other area wherein this water is untreated or treated. So you have to mention on which area are you going to discharge that water, the water after the operations, and what are the levels of treatment you have done. This was already given in the water prevention, water in the Water Act of 1974, that was meant to prevent water pollution. And this is doing exactly the same job of the Water Act, wherein it is asking you to disclose how responsible you have been when it comes to discharging the water after your operations are over. So if you are using, if you are discharging this water in surface water, so if you've done no treatment, please tell no, not treated. If you've done some amount of treatment, then say tertiary treatment. If you've, sorry, primary treatment. If you have done good level of treatment, then you can mention that this is exactly I have prescribed to the law, and these are the level of treatments that I have. We will see it in the next slide. We've used some examples of. So this is for the rubber industry. It's an example that I'm taking. A perfect report would look like this. If you are discharging water in inland surface water, in any if you're discharging water in any waste in any river, say you are discharging water in Yamuna Ji, then the pH needs to be between 6 to 8.5. Suspended solids need to have this unit. The dissolved solids need to be under 30. And this monitoring takes place for 3 days at 27 degrees Celsius. The oil and grease can be up to this prescribed unit. Free ammonia and nitrogen can be upon with respect to these units. And this is very well given uh, within Schedule 1 of the Environment Protection Act, as well as the Water Act. And if you are using land irrigation or any public sewer, if you are using that as a medium for your discharge, then your units need to be under the prescribed method that is given here. So suspended solids can go up to 200 because soil will do the absorption. And for ammonia and nitrogen, you don't even need certain disclosure. So this is the level of ease of business that there is. And then science will do its job. We can have another example. This is for the petrochemical industries. If you are discharging effluents in any of the bodies, then a perfect water monitoring report should look exactly like this. Because from the petrochemical units, phenols, sulfides, dissolved oxygen, cyanides, fluorides, which are highly toxic metals, they also get discharged in the form of effluents. That's why the monitoring is highly recommended and required, and you must get it done. For every industry, the Water Act and the Environment Protection Act has certain standards, for which if you'd like to understand, you can get in touch with us later after this webinar, or get in touch with me upon the email ID that will be shared with you after the webinar. I would like to now hand over the presentation to Ria for certain technical aspects around air emissions. And over to you, Ria. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So now I will take you through the air emission part. Air emission is also an essential indicator, and SEBI BRSR disclosure. This is the format how air emission should be reported, and these are the parameters that should be monitored in the air emission. And NOx, SOx, particulate matter, these should be specified in a particular unit, that is milligram per cubic meter or the microgram per cubic meter for both current financial year and the previous financial year. So coming to air emission, what is air emission? Air emissions refers to the presence of pollutant into the atmosphere in such a concentration it has the tendency or the potential to cause damage to the human being or the other living plants and the property or the environment. So these air emissions are caused by anthropogenic as well as the natural sources. Coming to the anthropogenic sources, when the combustion of fuel takes place into the transportation, it emits gases that are called as emission, industrial emission, agricultural, waste disposable. As per the BRSR disclosure, these are the pollutants that need to be monitored before we understand how emission inventory is developed. Let us first understand what air pollutants, and briefly I will explain it. What is NOx, what is SOx, what is the PM, what is VOC, what is POP. So let me take you through. NOx is a collective term for oxides of nitrogen, where X represents the number of oxygen forming bond with the nitrogen. So it can be present in the form of NO, NO2, but generally what happens is that nitrogen atoms are harder to energize. That's why NOx are not that much released into the atmosphere in comparison to SOx. And the common sources for the release of NOx is power plant, vehicle, industries, boilers, other combustion processes. Coming to SOx, SOx refers to the compound composed of sulfur and oxygen, where the X represents the number of oxygen forming bond with sulfur. The common sulfur oxides are sulfur dioxide, sulfur trioxide. So when a fossil fuel containing sulfur, such as coal, oil, are burned during certain industrial process, for example, metal smelting, it also contributes to the air pollution, as well as that for a long-term journey, it reflects into the formation of acid rain, the that will, when it comes in contact with water, it forms H2SO4, which affects the acid rain. And we have seen that example in the Taj Mahal, how it has been affecting the monuments. Coming to third point, particulate matter. Particulate matter consists of fine, solid, or liquid particles suspended in the air. These particles varies in size and can be classified as PM10 or PM2.5. Basically, it depends on the diameters of the particle. If a particle has a diameter of around 10 micrometer or smaller, it will be classified as PM10. And if it will have a diameter of 2.5 micrometers or smaller, it will be classified as PM2.5. The smaller the fine particles of particulate matter is, that will cause more harmful injury or damage to the health of the human being. So what are the sources of particulate matters? Industrial emission, dust from construction sites, vehicle emissions. These are the common sources which result into the emissions of particulate matter into the atmosphere. Coming to persistent organic pollutant, as the name suggests, these are the group of highly stable organic compounds that resist degradation through natural process and persist in the atmosphere for an extended period. These substances are not only characterized by their long distance, but they also have a toxic, these are toxic chemical that can persist into the atmosphere and can result in the bioaccumulation. So bioaccumulation happens in a living organism and will keep on following through the value chain. And the sources for persistent organic pollutant can be industrial process through the pesticides, combustion of waste, use of certain chemicals in the agriculture and manufacturing. Generally, it happens through the process of pesticides that are being used. Now, coming to volatile organic compound, VOC. VOCs are large group of organic compounds that easily vaporize at room temperature. These compound contains carbon and various other elements as well: hydrogen, oxygen, fluorine, chlorine. So these are released into atmosphere from multiple sources, including both human-made and the natural sources. When coming to the we are coming to the human-made sources. So certain manufacturing industries such as painting, printing, or chemical production can release VOC into the air. Combustion of fossil fuels in the vehicle, including car, trucks, and motorcycle, can release VOC in the market. Also, many household items such as paint, solvent, that nail thinner that we use, freshener, air freshener, personal care products contain VOC that can vaporize into the air. But not all VOCs are harmful. Some can contribute to the formation of ground level ozone and smoke. However, certain VOC have an adverse health effect, and those are also being listed by CPCB that they should not be included in a process that emits out. And those are like benzene, toluene, formaldehyde, xylene. Coming to hazardous air pollutant, hazardous air, as the name suggests, these are toxic air pollutants. And these are so toxic that are also known as or suspected as in ki they will keep on carrying in a human being for a generation over time, can result in birth defect, can cause cancer, and can have a serious health effects. So there are certain HAPs like benzene, vinyl chloride, mercury, formaldehyde. These pollutants are typically more harmful than the common air pollutants and can be toxic at very low concentration. So in terms of level of threat on a human health, if we have to order or prioritize these pollutants, so POP will be coming on the first, followed by HAP, and then followed by VOC. So before I explain this, for developing any emission inventory, first you need to identify the air that are being outlined also into the CTO, CT, and the applicability to your company, including criteria, pollutant, HAP, PAP, VOC. Then you need to identify the geographical area for the analysis and monitoring, like where the process is being taken and from where the emission is being released out into the atmosphere. Once you locate and identify the source or the process, you need to select a method for monitoring. So there are, earlier it used to be like manual sampling and analysis. Now there are equipments who do the continuous emission monitoring systems are there. That is the automated system that will provide you the real-time data on emissions for pollutants like CO2, NOx, SOx. And earlier it used to be happen is ki there was a manual sampling where you can do a periodic sampling of air emission. There was a equipment in which through the inlet the air will pass on, and at the bottom of the inlet there is a filter paper that will accumulate the air particles that are present into the atmosphere, and basis on the flow rate and the time and the quantity or the weight of the toxic pollutant that has been captured into the filter paper, we can estimate what's the air emission that is being created into the certain atmosphere by certain processes. So this is how a air emission inventory is being developed. And as per the environmental law, certain industries emissions standards has been defined. And for an example, I have used rubber industry in this slide, where you can see key for a particular metal, the concentration should not exceed more than milligram per meter cube of 150. And for VOC, it's 50. So these are the emission standards that are being defined by CPCB For CPCB, it's the National Ambient Standard, and this emission standard is particularly from the environmental law. Here, I have taken an example for fertilizer industry, where you can see for particulate matter how all the emission standards have been defined. And similarly for other industries, the emission standards are there. And there are also a particular emission standard that every industry needs to follow once they are doing the process that will result into the emissions into the atmosphere. Coming to our second essential indicator, GHG emission. So this is the format that has been provided by SEBI, where you have to provide the details of scope 1, scope 2 emission and its intensity. So these are the parameters, and you have to report in the metric tons of CO2 equivalent. So now in the next coming slides, I will cover how these calculations, briefly I will cover how the calculations are being done for scope 1 and scope 2. Coming to GHG, greenhouse gas emission refers to the release of gases that trap heat into the Earth atmosphere, preventing the heat escaping back into the space and creating a greenhouse effect that warms the planet. While this process is natural and essential for life, however, due to the anthropogenic activities, our greenhouse gas emission has increased since the Industrial Revolution and intensifying the global warming potential. These terms, the term GHG covers the following gases: carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbon, perfluorocarbon, sulfur hexafluoride, and nitrogen trifluoride. However, nitrogen trifluoride has recently been added into the list around 2021. So before understanding what GHG emission is, I would like to emphasize that according to the global warming potential, according to the greenhouse gas emission protocol, which is a standard, was developed by World Resource Organization, BRI Institute, and World Business Council of Sustainability Development. It talks about 3 types of emissions. Scope 1 emissions, emissions which are caused by the entity on its own business. For example, a steel plant is having a furnace and it's burning the coal into the furnace. So the emission which is caused inside the premise will be the scope 1. Scope 2 emission is caused on the account of the things that I purchase. For example, if I'm purchasing a electricity, so on account of purchasing the power was generated in another entity's scope. Now, actually, I am purchasing those power. So now I will have to account for the emission that was being generated during the generation of power. So that will fall under the scope 2. Scope 3. Scope 3, so I might be having suppliers, I might be procuring things from them. So these emissions are accounted as scope 3 emission. So before you design an inventory, GHG inventory, you need to understand the inventory management plan. You need to establish a organizational operational boundary. You need to identify the GHG emission sources, collecting the activity data, calculating the GHG emissions, and then you will set the GHG management plan accordingly to establish a reduction target, tracking emission and trends, managing inventory qualities. So this is how a GHG inventory is being done. So in order to determine which process are being owned or controlled by the company needs to define their organizational boundary. It determines which part of the companies are included into the inventory, at what percentage. So there are two consolidated approach to define these boundaries. First, the equity share approach, in which company accounts for the emission according to the share of equity in the operation. For example, if a company has 50% of equity in the factory A, the total emission accounted by factory A is around 1,000 metric ton, then the total emission that has to be accounted by the reporting company will depends on the equity percentage of equity share. So the company has 50%, so it will account for around 500 metric ton. This is how accounting is done on the basis of equity share approach. Secondly, there is a control approach in which company accounts for the emission from the operation based on the control it is over them. It is divided into the financial control and operation control. When a company has the ability to directly, or basically it has the financial or the control over the financial and the operating policy with a view to gain a economic benefits from activities, those are called financial control. So if a company have a decision making power and are making the financial decision for the company, it will have to report 100% of all the emission. Similarly goes with the operation control. If a parent company or some of the subsidiaries has full authority to introduce or implement operating policies for the operation, suppose the company is making a day-to-day decision about how a facility should operate, then the 100% of emission will be reported independent of the equity share. So company need to first select the approach and then apply these approach to develop an inventory in order to remove the double counting. So greenhouse gas emission are categorized under three scope. Scope 1 are direct emission that are being owned and controlled by the entity. Emission from activities or process. So coming to fuel combustion are being generally defined into two parts, stationary and the mobile. So stationary will be the emission from the burning of fossil fuel inside the stationary equipment like boiler, furnaces, generator. Mobile combustion will be the emission from the combustion of fuel in the company's owned vehicle, machinery, or the equipment. Coming to the process equipment, emission that occurred as a part of industrial process, these are not due to the combustion of fuel, but also from the results of chemical reaction and physical process, such as CO2 emission from the production of cement through the heating of limestone. Then coming to the fugitive emission, there are some unintentional emissions from the leak or accidental release during the extraction, processing, or storage, or the transportation of material. Those leaks of gases, as in form of emission from refrigerators, ACs, are referred to as fugitive emissions. Agriculture emissions come from the direct agriculture activities. Like if you are storing a manure management, the emission from the storage and the treatment of manure will result into the emissions of methane. The cattle digestions, this is the how that will account into the agriculture emission. Coming to scope 2, scope 2 emissions are direct emission that result from the generation of purchasing or acquiring electricity. Scope 3 emissions are indirect GHG emission that occur into the value chain of an entity, both upstream and downstream, but are directly owned or controlled by the entity. These emissions occur from the activities such as production of purchased good, employee business travel, use of sold product. So upstream emissions result from the activities related to supply chain before the product and the services reaches the entity. Whereas the downstream are those emissions that result from the activity after the product and services are sold or used. First, I will cover the scope 3. Okay, let me. So what is GWP? In order to make the reporting easier, we can say that every emission gases has to be report in the form of CO2 equivalent. So GWP is a measure of how much heat a greenhouse gas trap into the atmosphere over a specific period time relative to carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is the standard unit used to compare and account for these emissions from various GHG sources. For example, if CO2 has a GWP of 1 and methane has a GWP of 25, so for every ton of methane that is being emitted, an equivalent of 25 tons of CO2 would be emitted. This is how the standard unit is being presented in a simpler way to normalize and express GHG in the form of CO2. So these major sources of CO2 emissions are fossil fuel, combustion, deforestation, cement production, land use changes. For methane, it's agriculture, livestock, landfills, natural gas extraction, wetlands. For nitrogens, oxides, these are generally through agricultural practices like fertilizers, fossil fuel combustions. HFCs are being released by the refrigerants, air conditioning, foam, solvents. PFCs are the released during the production of aluminum through the refrigerators, solvents, semiconductors manufacturing, and sulfur hexafluorides are released during the manufacturing of electric equipment, magnesium production, or the semiconductor manufacturing. Nitrogen trifluoride are also released during the semiconductor manufacturing, also during the solar panel production. These are the main sources for the release of GHG into the atmosphere. Coming to GHG inventory, so on the basis of approach that a company is going to report either on the consolidated equity share or the control approach. Once the company accumulate the activity data, the company needs to infuse the activity data and the emission data into the formula. So what is activity data? So activity data generally represents the activity that generates GHG emissions. So it can be electricity consumption, fuel consumption, distance traveled, waste generation. Whereas the emission factor is a specific to the type of activity and represents the amount of GHG that are being emitted per unit of activity data. These factors are typically expressed in the terms of CO2 equivalent. So all the GHGs are converted to CO2 equivalent using the GWP. So emission factor vary based on the sources of energy, the type of fuel used, and the technology involved in the process. For emission factor, you can refer the various trusted database and organizations such as IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, DEFRA, EPA. These are the government organization or the organization that keep on providing the comprehensive list of emission factor year on year to report the GHG emission or for the GHG accounting. Coming to the leadership indicators, scope 3 emission. This is how it is being articulated by SEBI, and this is how a company needs to report the scope 3 emission. So scope 3 emission are the parameters where you have to cover the total scope 3 emission breakup of GHG into CO2, CH4, N2O, HFC, PFC, and then scope 3 emission per rupee of the turnover. Coming to scope 3 is generally divided into two parts. One is the upstream and the second is the downstream. I already told you in the previous slide when the supply chain, when the emissions are related to supply chain before the product and services reach the entity, and when the after the product and services are being sold by the company, then the downstream. So scope 3 is being categorized into purchase goods and services, capital goods, fuel and energy related activities, upstream transportation and distribution, waste generation in operation, business travel, employee community, upstream lease asset, downstream transportation and distribution, processing of sold product, use of sold product, and end of life treatment of sold product, downstream lease asset, franchisee, and the investment. These are the categories of scope 3 which needs to be calculated and has to be accounted. Coming to GHG intensity, GHG intensity is a measure of the amount of greenhouse gas emission that was produced per unit of the output. So it basically provides the environmental performance report of an organization, how efficient its process is related to the related to its size, output, or revenue. So GHG intensity, the formula is total GHG emission in CO2 equivalent is divided by the unit of output. You can go with the revenue, production volume, size, or the number of total employees. Coming to the essential indicator, GHG reduction project. So this is an essential indicator where company need to disclose if they are associated with any project or inside their organization, if they are implementing things that can reduce their footprint. So we will be covering the projects related to greenhouse gas emission that will be helping in reducing their carbon footprint. Coming to the energy efficiency project, company can reduce their footprint, energy consumption while maintaining or improving the output. So how can company improve their outputs? They can switch to more energy efficient lighting, upgrade their industrial equipment to improve the process efficiency, can promote or use electric vehicle inside their premises, can set up emission control systems, like there are certain filters, scrubbers, equipment that need to be set that will be monitoring it, and also can implement LIDAR, that is the leak detection and repair system, to detect and repair the leaks into the equipment and reduce the release of hazardous gases into the atmosphere. Companies can also, coming to the renewable energy project, company can replace the fossil fuel based energy with clean renewable sources. They can install solar panel, turbine, wind turbine, can use steam to generate electricity. This is how they can. Waste management practices can reduce emission from waste decompositions and treatment, landfill gases can be captured through the machines, which can be used for generating the energy. WT is also a project where the energy is being generated by combustion of the waste that are neither going to be landfill or not recyclable. The natural process, the carbon sequestration project, where you can remove and store CO2 from the atmosphere. This is the process where you store the CO2 into the vegetation, soil, or the ocean by afforestation, reforestation, wetland, to soil carbon management. Ma'am, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ria. That was amazing. Ria, could you please go to the previous slide that there was you had mentioned so nicely?
Yeah.
Yes. So Ria has quite nicely explained about our energy efficiency projects, renewable energy projects, how you can go into all these and at least reduce your carbon footprint. Carbon sequestration is quite an interesting project that only includes, that is a very natural way of including uh, carbon footprint reduction program. This is a long-term program that includes afforestation, and afforestation is not a new concept. Compulsory afforestation funds have been sitting under Supreme Court for quite some time now. So there is a company called Webhub Global that has done tremendous job in terms of carbon sequestration. They have adopted 194 acre of area in Chandwaji district of Jaipur, Rajasthan, and converted that area into a forest, a city forest that is also carbon sequestration. So don't go by the jargons, just see how science works. So I'll immediately take the waste management part, and I'll quickly explain to you what kind of wastes there are in a company and how you need to manage them and what are the disclosures that are required. See, we come across a lot of funny. Yes, sir. Sir, sir, are you saying something?
Yeah. Sukriti,
Yes,
because
sir.
time is short and we have to take question answer also.
Yes,
So
sir.
I
So
will.
we'll be short.
Yeah. So
We'll be short here. It's a relatively shorter portion.
uh,
It goes by the name. We've come across a lot of. I'll give you a practical approach to how it is. We come across tremendously window dressed BRSR reports, and I think NSE also came out with a guideline into 2024 saying that a lot of companies say that they don't generate any plastic waste, which is not possible. Not possible. Every company generates some kind of plastic waste. It can be in the form of any plastic. It's just that we are not aware of the plastic waste management rules. So I believe that every company should have a plastic waste management policy in which you are able to at least assess, this is PET, this is PETE, this is polyethylene, this is LDPE. Plastic is everywhere. Plastic is in your computer. Plastic is in the clutches that all the female employees use. It's in your telephones. It's in your desktop. It's everywhere. So saying that you don't generate plastic pollution is an act of window dressing, and government is going to take it seriously from now on. E-waste, I think e-waste is quite a regulated market. Any company that generates any kind of waste that is in the form of electronics, it comes under this category. Biomedical waste is covered under Biomedical Waste Management Act, which is especially crafted for hospitals and laboratories from where biomedical waste comes out. I request all of you to please see Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 of this Act, which will give you an idea of what is biomedical waste. Construction and demolition waste is levied on big construction and real estate companies, or any demolition, any company that is into the act of demolition, because government takes charge of all the demolition waste, recycles it and process it. So this is as regulated as e-waste. battery waste and e-waste go kind of hand in hand, just that the only problem is that in battery waste, when the dismantling and recycling is done, there is also hazardous substances and poisonous substances that come out as byproducts that need to be managed differently than the e-waste processing and recycling sites. Radioactive waste is for companies that are into any kind of manufacturing of nuclear power, or that can have nuclear radiations, or if you have seen that there are two belts within a Mendeleevian periodic table, chromium, all these kind of elements that can come out as a byproduct need to be managed according to the radioactive waste in the radioactive waste category. They are also called as ozone depleting substances, and we have a special act for this, the management of the same, and that is Ozone Depleting Act. The moment a company has any kind of byproducts of these, need to take certification from Central or State Pollution Control Board, depending upon your operations, and you have to report them accordingly. Next slide, please. These are the categories of wastes I have explained. Okay, this is Ria, the next slide. These are the essential indicators in which you can use the disposal mechanism. One is recycling. You can have an in-house recycling facility, or you can outsource it. It'll also help you fetch EPR credits. Incineration. In some kind of wastes need to be incinerated, but there are designated incinerating sites, and the designation needs to be done by either State Pollution Control Board or Central Pollution Control Board, depending upon your operations. Landfilling also needs to be done through a third party, and that is municipal corporation or any registered party that is registered with either a recycler or an incinerator. And you can also do composting of the biodegradable waste in your own facilities, and that will also help you do carbon sequestration and achieve any kind of carbon footprint reduction targets. Next slide, please. Waste intensity is also calculated in the same manner. Total waste generated in tons or kgs. Please use metric tons, kilotons, quintals. Only use tons or kgs. Divided by the output of unit or activity. Now, this is not divided by the turnover. This is divided by the output or activity. So, what is the activity? The amount of. Let's come to the next slide. The environmental impact assessment is a notification under 2000. It's a proper notification under 2006 that has 4 steps. It is only for big projects that touch upon wildlife sanctuaries, bioreserve areas, wetlands, or touches base with any kind of demarcated forest or ecologically sensitive zone. So for that, you have to take 4 steps essentially. One is screening, then is scoping, there is public hearing, and the 4th step is appraisal of the project. And you have to provide very relevant data according to this. You have to apply for a EC for this kind of a claims. And this EC is not easy to obtain. This is not given to you by CPCB or SPCB. This is given to you directly by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Okay, next slide, please. Essential indicator, if you have complied with the Water Act and the Air Act, I think it is a no-brainer. There are penalties defined in Section 15 of the Environment Protection Act, and there are pecuniary and punitive punishments also, with term of up to 1 year if there is a continuous miscarriage of compliances on your part. Next slide, please. I would like to explain these two terms in.
Sukriti, we have to stop here because now time is already and we have a 15 question.
Okay, great. So would you like me to explain about disaster management and business continuity, or stop here?
I think we have over we have
We're good to go. Okay, we can take that up in questions. So I think that's
Yeah.
all from my side. We've covered essentially the entire P6, and rest other things. I would like everybody, if you have any questions, please directly get in touch with us, and we will be happy to answer.
Okay, now I'm going to the thank you very much, Ria and Sukriti, to explain very in detail the technical topic. I have a question, but very quick and short answer we have to give because time is short. What is scope 3 emission?
Ria, this question would be for you because you have
Anybody can
explained
give
this.
So basically, these are the indirect GHG emission that occurs into the value chain. So suppose if I'm purchasing like I have a potato manufacturing company, so the potato that I'm purchasing is being extracted and being transported to me. So though all those emission are being calculated into the scope 3 emission.
Okay. Estimation method used to calculate energy, DG, fugitive emission, water and waste. Data unavailability is a major challenge.
So, okay, so DG sets require fuel to work. Fuel energy consumption, I think we've explained in the slides how it comes in the form of kgs or kiloliters. So this is how it is going to be.
Yes,
How
sir.
to
It will depends on the efficiency and the consumption of fuel being divided by the time it has been operated.
Okay. Can you differentiate between water consumption and water withdrawal?
Yes, sir. Water withdrawal minus water consumption. Okay, I'll simplify this for you. The amount of water that you have derived, consumed from any water source is your water consumption, and the water discharge is the water that you have after use, you have discharged that back into any kind of stream that I explained in the slides also.
Okay. Which standard are you referring to the affluent's partner parameter?
The Water Act, the Water Act of 1974.
No. He's saying which standard are you referring for affluent parameters? So it's a industry standard forum has given or something else?
Absolutely, sir.
Yes, sir.
So the Environment Protection Act is the parent act. Water Act and Air Act are made under the tutelage of Environment Protection Act that further defines water cess rules are there, and emission standards are given for each and every industry that is primarily into manufacturing setup.
Okay. What shall be the source of data of these air pollutants? Ria.
Sir, these are being monitored through the stack emission reports or through the equipments or by the analyzing the atmosphere at that time. So based on the report, it will be calculated for like for 24 hours, there will be 3 types of report for 8 hours each. So
Okay.
this is how the air pollutant is being calculated.
How to verify
That's
how to verify the reliability of these data? Any counter check available?
Yes, sir, absolutely. If you have, if the data is coming from NABL accredited laboratory, CPET, or any laboratory that has NABL certification, then that in itself is quite authenticated data. However, we also have the provision of BRSR core assurance that is done by third-party assurance, and that's how it is. Because the monitoring happens again. See, ultimately, we need to understand that these are real-time datas. So there could be slight discrepancy here and there, but there will not be much discrepancy. We have to rely on NABL accredited laboratory datas and
Okay.
third-party analysis.
How to verify the reliability of these data? Any counter check available? This you have given. What is the source of these industry standards? So SEBI has formed a industry standard forum under the chairmanship of Mr. K.V. Kamath, and in the all three chamber, ASSOCHAM, FICCI, CII, they are nominating their member for this subject, and then this forum is making industry standard. So this is the source of industry standard. Whatever they have said, there's so many things has come from industry standard. How agriculture and purchased electricity give rise to GHG emission. Ria?
So basically what happens, sir, in agriculture, if we take an example of manure manufacturing management, so when we are managing the manure or storing those manure, that will result into the emissions of methane, and methane is also a GHG gas. So this is how, not only by this, also by using the synthetic fertilizer, the practices that are being used to farming, these are the activities that will result into the emissions of GHG.
Sir, I would also like to add that the carbide gas that was released during Bhopal gas tragedy was also one of the factories that was preparing a manure, what do we call it, fertilizer for
Fertilizer.
it was a fertilizer manufacturing industry. So just imagine if we could if we could just immediately die after inhaling that gas, how chemicalated and polluting that industry's particular area is. Potash industries in itself, potashes and urea industries in themselves, they have extreme high level of greenhouse gases around their vicinity, and people are given extremely high standards of protection there. And these industries boom depending upon because they are highly incentivized.
Okay. At present, who is the competent authority who verifies the data before they become part of the BRSR reporting?
Sir, I need to understand the question again.
At present, who is the competent authority who verifies these data before they become part of the BRSR reporting? They are saying when you say this data you have to take, so you have to report in the BSR reporting. So somebody will be verifying the number, the parameters which they have given.
Sir, okay, so that's why we have BRSR core assurance provision that came in 2023. So BRSR core assurance is third-party assurance on the quantitative data only. And as I said, we have to rely on NABL and the third-party certification. So the reliance depends upon the third-party certification. But
Okay.
sir, as I said in my presentation also that right now there is no judgment being passed on the numbers that we provide. It is all about the disclosure, and it's like a baseline study. And basis this, we can set targets to reduce these emissions.
Okay. As per the timeline of BRSR reporting, company in India submitted the BRSR report as follows. 23 24 top 150 listed company, then 250, then 1000. The question is, company has submitted the correct information, not who is going to check. Is SEBI have a qualified staff for the evaluation of these BRSR report? The answer is yes. SEBI has a separate division, separate people, or those who are expert in this, like Ria in our office. She is a engineer, okay, and she knows about the what she's saying. I have never heard. Okay, so because she is talking about the air pollution, in air pollution, what is included, or Sukriti is doing. So they have their own team, own department, and they are using the industry, the expert of the industry. Whenever they are coming out BRSR report or some other thing, they form the committee and they do this. How the ESG rating in picture for all overall BRSR report evaluation? Who is certifying for the credibility and which are the parameters for the credibility?
Okay, sir, I'd like to answer it this way again. That right now on the parameters on which you give the data, right now government is only concerned about you give the data. It's your first thing is your own conscience. You need to give out the right data, because and companies who are highly into the high image and they want to manage their reputation would not go into any kind of window dressing activities. Then, of course, there is pressure from the regulatory bodies, then stakeholders. So even if your conscience is right, not in place, then with time we'll realize that the moral compass will come in the north direction pretty soon. So this is how it is going to be. Right now, it is all about data and introspection. With the coming times, as the standards will evolve, the right now there is a carrot, the stick is going to get harder. Sir, you're on mute.
Sorry. Hello, ma'am. I'm currently working at the area of sustainability of my PhD research topic. While assessing this business responsibility report, the majority of the company did not disclose a large number of disclosure. They dodged by the question by simply leaving the column blank. Can you suggest some ways in which they are make the companies disclose these information and make them more responsible towards environmental sustainability?
Hmm.
Yeah.
See, that's okay. This is law that has just come into picture, and I think we should not be too hard with the companies on which this law has come as an immediate surprise. It's just been 2-3 years into the picture. So please, I would like every stakeholder to be in a breathing space right now and handhold. This is the time to collaborate. And the only this entire webinar is about this only, that companies become more aware. It's not always the place from the place of malice that companies don't want to disclose. Sometimes they don't have the data to disclose. Before this, nobody asked them how many plastic bottles are you consuming. Nobody asked. Do we ask our parents? Do parents ask us? Suddenly putting an onus on a third party is not fair. Don't be so judgmental. Please handhold each other in this time of collaboration and let them give time. There are consultants which are helping all the companies gather data, and with time you will see that there will be disclosures, there will be transparent disclosures, and this is the only rationale of the BRSR report. So we need to have an open mind around this.
Okay. Green washing may also reporting. How SEBI verifying this?
Greenwashing, okay, so there is a very thin line difference between greenwashing and window dressing. It's basically lying and it's exaggerating. So right now, since it's about data collection. Again, I'm repeating myself that this is the time of data collection. Right now, SEBI is focused on companies to simply understand how data needs to be collected, how introspection needs to be done. Then there will be standards in the future as we can predict and see the trends, that then there will be certain standards that will be coming in within each disclosure, that at least you need to have this much. That's what we call the baseline study. See, we need to understand that each and every industry does a different kind of activity, has a different kind of pollution level. That is why if you go into the laws also, for petrochemical it is different, for fertilizer industry it is different, for dairy it is different. Everybody acts differently. You cannot put one standard on, you cannot treat everybody under one yardstick. So SEBI is working on it. And eventually, as the transparency will increase, the standards will increase, awareness will increase. You will also see that the companies are behaving properly because they will be more equipped with the right knowledge and how the data needs to be reported. So this, again, you need to keep an open mind till the time we have more standards in place.
Okay. Can we get the transcript of the session? We will send it to you. Most of the environmental indicator covers in different environment tech like water, air, hazardous waste, environmental act, etc. And the company already submitted. Why SEBI and SPCB not coordinating for the same to enhance the ease of doing business for the industry? I'll give answer. Mr. Satish, the point is that this is when we talk about the ESG, it's a consolidated point where environmental, social, and governance is there. SAFE is a governance regulator, and because ESG is a part of this, and the BRSR report is a part of this, that's why SEBI is coming in picture. Today, what is happening? They are working out. If you are submitting some information to one stock exchange, automatically it can go to other stock exchange. And slowly they are also working out that whatever information you have given to registrar of companies, they will take it from there. They are working out, but it's a initial starting, and it's a responsibility of SEBI. That's why they are doing this. But after some time, the SPCB will coordinate with them. Okay, so I think we have given answer of all questions. There was a one big questions which was there. That is also yeah. So Sukriti and Riya and Ankit, thank you very much, because we have already overshooted 15 minutes time, and no doubt it's a very interesting topic, interesting point, and everybody
Yes.
to understand this point. And people will people will do it. That's why they are doing. Only thing is, you have to work out Sukriti and Riya on one part. What is happening? This is a very complicated subject, but it's a complicated subject, but it is touching everybody's life. So there should be some method will be worked out that how to identify good or bad company for the environment. Okay, what are the parameters? So the parameters should be written on the product, or there should be some dashboard. There should be something. Some innovative things should also be there, like environmental performance dashboard should be there. Eco score labeling system should also be there, like how the environmental impact and how the compensation improvement impact, A to F grade and color coded system should also be there. QR code with sustainability information, okay, like carbon footprint, water usage, recycling, compensation, all these things. The blockchain based the environmental reporting should also be start. AI powered environmental impact prediction should also come. Green credit or offset market place will also start, because carbon credit and selling and purchasing these things. Suppose I'm doing something, but I can buy or I can do something like I'm planting trees and other thing. To create awareness, we should start gamifying consumer engagement, because consumer how they can understand. Okay, environmental KPI should also start on the company's portal. Real-time impact monitoring should also start, that how much you have polluted today and what are the system you follow. Environment and transparency certificate should also be there. So these are some innovative thoughts are there which people have to start. Okay, so now
Yes,
we have to work out, and this is a beginning because nobody was talking about the environment
absolutely.
pollution. So this is the way, and the because I asked this question first myself, that why law is required to do this. So this is for the uniformity, and people will follow law. They don't follow the advice. So that's why it is there. So with this,
Hmm.
thank you very much, Shukriti. Thank you, Ankit. Thank you, Ria, for giving nice presentation
Okay,
on this. And my
thank
all,
you, sir.
it's a very
Thank you, sir.
technical topic. And all participants, thank you very much. You are still there with number. And this is a very, and we don't bother about the number. We bother about the topic and the relevant people, how it can help. So
Yes, sir.
thank you, everyone. As I told you, this journey of knowledge sharing is continue. On now we have another topic on 31st January, Friday, 4 o'clock. Data protection, a game changer. That is also very innovative and new subject, new topic. We'll discuss this. Until then, goodbye.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I have shared my email ID and sir's email ID. Anybody, any questions, please reach out to us. I'm happy to talk about environment at any point of the day. Thank you so much.
Or any question which is not answered, you think you want